Hey there, I'm Dr. Dave. Welcome to Microdose U. And today is a special episode. That's right, it's an additional episode. We do our Wednesday episodes, well, every Wednesday, of course, but this is a special episode featuring my good friend and colleague, Dr. Denise Moret. You know, we get a lot of requests, especially lately, a lot of requests from women asking, what about microdosing psychedelics for women's health issues, especially things like perimenopausal things and things associated with that. So we decided, yes, that's a pretty big thing, and I certainly am not an expert at that. So I figured, what would be better than getting Dr. Denise Moret on to do an episode on perimenopause and women's health issues and microdosing. Dr. Denise is a doctor of psychology. She's also extremely experienced with plant medicine, and I've asked her to come on and speak for a little bit to our women out there and also men out there that might have a woman in their life that could be going through some things. So we'll bring Dr. Denise on. Really appreciate having her for this episode. And then when she's finished, I'll come back on with a little more information and what we're going to be doing in the future to help you with women's health. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Denise from Microdose U, and this is a special episode, actually. Dr. Dave and I discussed me coming on here for Microdose U to talk about some unique women's health issues, actually. And I would say that this is relevant if you're a female or you know a female. Much of what we say can be applied in other areas and might be helpful when you're, even if you're not a female, it might be helpful to pass on to someone that is in your life that this could be relevant for. So there's so much that we could talk about that's unique in women's bodies, health. And I'm going to focus specifically on the issues around menopause, perimenopause. I've gotten a lot of questions about that lately, and specifically if microdosing psychedelic medicines can be helpful in that time of life and in those shifts. So most people know what these topics are and have lived through lots of this. But I'm always struck by perimenopause. What that really means, it's kind of the time leading up to menopause. It can be very noticeable. It can be brief. It can span 10, 15 plus years. And then once menopause occurs, then you've got regulations and shifts that continue after that. Somebody recently said, it's such a brief part of life. The reality is a full lifespan, a woman is going to spend a bulk of her life in perimenopause, menopause, and then postmenopause. So what does all of that mean? And how can microdosing psychedelic medicines such as psilocybin, LSD, etc., be useful in that? And actually, it's extremely useful. So let's just talk quickly about why that is. So during the shifts in cycles women notice throughout their lifetime, men notice shifts in cycles, believe it or not. There's all kinds of hormonal shifts that go on for us in human existence, and that affects a lot of our mood and stress and sleep and various other aspects of being human. So we're going to narrow it down to the changes that happen for women when they are leading up to menopause. So what we begin to notice, and there's no magical age, and it can go on, like I said, for a very long time. And there are women who can be in their 30s and they're starting to notice that there's shifts. What starts to happen is there's drops and inconsistencies in the hormonal fluctuations. So there are cycles in the fluctuations of hormones throughout the lifetime. During the perimenopause time of life, there's a lot of dysregulation and it's very inconsistent. And women will report like these extremes in their mood, their sleep, how they feel, noticing all kinds of very abrupt sometimes changes. And it makes for a lot of dysregulation affecting so much of our life. It affects stress management, sleep, thinking clearly. A lot of women will talk about brain fog. inflammation, physical inflammation in the body. All of this is due to changes in estrogen, progesterone. Those are there's drops in the perimenopausal stage and then leading to menopause and after. And the thing that can be so challenging in the perimenopause is that inconsistency. Once a body has gone through and is through menopause and postmenopause, things kind of settle down because now there's kind of a new regulation and new cycles, so to speak. During this perimenopause, it's just really it can be all over the place and really can affect so much that, really can be just life altering in that moment. So microdosing psilocybin, microdosing LSD has shown to be extremely helpful in regulating what the body can no longer regulate on its own because of those drops in estrogen. And without getting too much into the whole science of it, what happens is that there's a direct link between estrogen and serotonin. So serotonin is, like, people know that that's really where the site of action, what is affected by the microdosing psychedelics. So among other things, but specifically the amount of serotonin. Serotonin affects so much. It affects our mood, all of the things I've already mentioned. And so the drop in estrogen means that there's going to be a drop in the amount of serotonin, because estrogen and serotonin need each other. So serotonin is looking to the estrogen. Estrogen is going to regulate our adrenal system, our mood, etc. So when there's a drop in estrogen, progesterone, of course, that's going to have a direct impact on the serotonin. And the serotonin is kind of like what most directly affects our mood and many other things, as I've mentioned. So there's a couple of reasons why that is. Well, two main reasons. The density of the serotonin receptors decreases during perimenopause. So things are actually getting smaller. The less dense those receptors are, the less sensitive they're going to be because they're smaller. So there's, again, that dysregulation of the serotonin. So the amount of serotonin has dropped, and the density of the receptors have actually dropped. So now we're less sensitive to the serotonin that we do have. And that makes for some, a lot of mood issues and feeling like a sort of depression, body slowing down, inflammation. So what can we do about that? The microdosing the psychedelics, and this is specifically microdosing. We get questions about macrodosing. If someone's macrodosing, it's actually not going to have that kind of impact. When you're microdosing with some consistency, specifically when there's perimenopause, menopause issues, you're getting that kind of regular dosing. And the psychedelics take over the function of the estrogen, the drop in estrogen, the drop in progesterone. So it really actually regulates. Now, we know that psychedelics, psilocybin, LSD, we know that it helps regulate mood. We know that it helps decrease inflammation. So what we're seeing on the receptors is that it actually begins when you're microdosing psychedelics. It takes those shrinking receptors and it's actually increasing them. So there's less of that shrinkage, so to speak. So it's going to mean that the serotonin sensitivity is going to be increased. And we want that. We want to be able to respond to the serotonin that is there and replenish the serotonin. And we know that psychedelics such as psilocybin, LSD directly impact the serotonin. So this is why microdosing psilocybin and LSD are going to increase the amount of serotonin, and they're going to increase the sensitivity to the serotonin. So the estrogen drops and all of that inconsistency can kind of be a little more regulated. What the body starts to do is it looks to other sources So since the estrogen is dropped, now it's looking to other sources. It's one of the reasons women have bone loss and other kinds of osteoporosis. The body is kind of trying to regulate itself, and it's looking for other sources to get what it needs. And given that the estrogen and those things have dropped, so that's where the psychedelics can really have such a positive benefit. Now, we know even without there being, for males and people who are not going through these shifts and cycles and inconsistencies, we know that those benefits are already there. This is just a very specific recognition of how uniquely beneficial microdosing, psilocybin, LSD, psychedelics really can regulate specifically during that time, like I said, the perimenopause, the menopause, and even post-menopause. So just a little bit about that. There's a lot that we could talk about in women's health issues. Maybe we'll do more episodes like this. Thank you, Dr. Dave, for asking me to come on here. And lots of people that listen to the show have asked to address some of the specific unique issues to women and if psychedelics can help, and they really can. So hopefully that's been of some value to you. We always say check the show notes for if you'd like to get in touch with us. Certainly email us, Dr. Dave, myself. Go to microdoseu.com. There's certainly lots of information there. Join the Patreon channel, all of that. And of course, we do offer one-on-one guidance if somebody would like to get really specific, because as we always say, there is no one particular right way or one kind of way of using psychedelics to address issues. So sometimes just that intensive one-on-one coaching support and guidance can help, particularly if there's some unique chemistry and physiology going on. So thank you so much for having me, Dr. Dave. Again, this is Microdose U. I'm Dr. Denise. I've been on some of the shows before. I'm a doctor of psychology, and I have an expertise in plant medicines, earth medicines, specifically microdosing psychedelics. Thanks very much.
Hey, thanks so much, Dr. Denise. Really appreciate that. I think this is a great start to helping women out there that are just curious about microdosing and women's health and perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, all these types of things. Let's keep this going with some future episodes. So if you are a woman or even a man that might have a question about this, maybe your partner, maybe your spouse, maybe anybody you're with, somebody in your family is going through these things, throw some questions at us, either on YouTube or email me, dave@matto.com. By the way, as Dr. Denise said, email addresses are always in the show notes. And we will try to get your question answered on a future episode with Dr. Denise and women's health and psychedelics. Again, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'll see you back on Wednesday for the next regular episode of Microdose U.